A Search in Vedic India, Chapter 8, Mantra. By the time they reached Kurtalam, it was 8 in the night. They arrived at the Siddheshwari Mutt with a little enquiry. The watchman took them to the manager who lived in the same compound. The manager, Mr. Ramarao, came out and spoke to them. Vimala was surprised that he was speaking in Telugu in a town that bordered Tamil Nadu and Kerala, two states that are quite far from Andhra Pradesh. Vimala asked Mr. Ramarao about the mutt's history. He told her that the Siddheshwari Mutt was established by a Telugu gentleman named Maunaswami. He wrote in his will that only Telugu-speaking people should head the mutt. The mutt had assets and therefore there is no need to seek or solicit funds from any visitors. If contributions are given voluntarily, they are accepted. After the baggage was placed in the rooms that were assigned to them, they were taken to the dining room for dinner. In the dining hall, they acquainted themselves with Mr. Gurumurti. He told them that he was a frequent visitor and gave information about the Swami heading the mutt. He said that the present Swami was a great mantra siddha. Even before assuming the throne in the mutt, the Swami was respected as a great exponent of the science of mantra and achieved significant heights. Could you explain briefly about the science of mantra? Is it not a blind belief system? Asked Vimala. Before I tell you about the science of mantra, you should also know more about the present Swami. There have been many Shakti worshippers in this country. Among them, one famous person was Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni, who lived before 1940. He was supposed to have mastered 10 great systems of Shakti worship, popularly known as Dasha Mahavidya. He was the man who named Venkatraman as Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. One information many do not know was that he had a large number of followers, and with their help, he aimed at achieving independence for the country. It must have helped all the leaders of that time who were in the freedom movement indirectly. The British kept vigilance on him for a while, but they could not blame him for anything as they did not understand the science. After Ganapati Muni, the present Swami also achieved the same expertise in Dasha Mahavidya and has been suggesting suitable mantras to those who approached him with their problems. I have not heard of mantra science in spiritual practices. Where does this fit? In practices like karma and bhakti, asked Vimala. It could be both karma and bhakti as the recitation of mantra happens with devotion. If it is done with a desire for a purpose, it is simply karma or bhakti. But if it is done without any desire, it could be karma yoga or bhakti yoga. It plays an important role in preparing one for spiritual pursuits. For example, if someone has a severe ailment or someone close relatives have an ailment, or a desire to have children has not been fulfilled by ordinary means, then a divine intervention with the help of mantras could help, explained Mr. Gurumurti. What are these mantras? What happens if one recites them? Asked Albert. Each mantra is a combination of a few words with a sound associated with each word. When the mantra is repeated, their vibration in the field of energy brings favorable results. Just to help you understand, you take chemicals. There are 94 essential elements on earth, and including the artificial ones, the number could be 118. If you take some of them and combine them, a certain power is accrued by that combination. If you add atoms of oxygen and hydrogen, you get water that has some power, not individually possessed by hydrogen and oxygen. Similarly, a few Sanskrit words are combined with particular sound notations, and if recited, certain energy fields emerge. This energy could be directed towards the desired target to derive the benefit. If the cosmic energy is considered a goddess with infinite energy, a particular mantra is presided by one specific goddess controlling that energy, and by following the prescribed procedure, some benefit could be derived. While the combination of chemicals is purely mechanical, here recitation of the mantra is combined with an emotional devotion. Results are proportional to this emotional devotion. Wherever Swami camps, hundreds of people throng seeking a mantra for their problems. But Swamiji does this activity purely as a service and no money is demanded nor donations solicited. The mutt has enough assets to carry on its activities, explained Gurumurti. The next day, both of them got ready early in the morning and went to the temple premises in Mutt. They were informed that Swami was already in the sacred fire hall doing homam and would come out around 10 am for his visits. The manager, Mr. Ramarao, suggested that they could visit nearby waterfalls after breakfast. Along with Mr. Gurumurti, they went to the nearby waterfalls. Though the water was falling from height in a distance, the water was also flowing on small boulders in a vast area, providing an opportunity to take a bath. Many people entered the water and were enjoying the flow. Inspired by that, Albert entered the water too. By the time they returned, Swamiji had come out from the Homam hall. They all watched Swamiji performing the worship of a black cow in the prescribed procedure. Performing worship on the hind portion of the cow instead of the front portion was watched by Albert with interest. Why like that? He asked Gurumurti, sitting beside him. I also do not know exactly, but I think most of the wealth given by the cow is from that portion, as the cow dung and urine also are used for various purposes besides milk and progeny, replied Murthy. It makes sense, thought Albert. Many people were waiting in the hall already by the time Albert and Vimala arrived there. It was nearly an hour before their turn arrived. Vimala explained the problem of Narahari. Since he was a boy, she said she would do the mantra on his behalf. While continuing medical efforts, mantra sadhana could be performed, said Swamiji. Swamiji inquired Albert about his details. Encouraged by the fact that Swamiji was speaking in English, Albert braved a question. I am unable to believe that diseases are cured by reciting a mantra. How is it possible for a few grouped words? Asked Albert. Though the human intelligence reached unimaginable heights, would you agree if I said that there is some force or power beyond the reach of the human mind? Asked Swamiji. Probably, but an example might help better, remarked Albert. Humans and animals are not breathing intentionally. It is happening because of an invisible force. Similarly, when you gulp a morsel of food, do you have any role in its digestion and it becoming energy? It is all happening with automatic generation and combinations of various enzymes in different parts of the body, functioning as a system. Somebody must have designed it, is it not? Yes, of course. Nature must have done that, said Albert. What do you mean by nature? Is it inanimate without intelligence? Asked Swamiji. Yes, it must have been the function of powerful intelligence, agreed Albert. Another critical difference. If you designed a particular system and it started functioning, do you think it would change its size, etc. on its own? It is obvious it cannot, replied Albert. Could you imagine in what size your digestive system was designed originally? Your mind cannot go beyond the stage of reproductive cells. From the stage you were in your mother's womb, it has been changing continuously. We cannot say at what stage it has been designed. If you trace back, at some stage it must have been pure infinite power before physical appearance. Just like you are collecting the sound waves from space using a radio set, the mantras help to draw the power like the radio set. The energy drawn could be directed to the required person like you are sending an email to someone through the internet. From that primal energy, you can draw power just like from your radio set or any other device that receives information, explained Swamiji. How is it all happening? Asked Albert. It is difficult to explain in layman's terms. Like an ordinary man cannot understand the coding and other internal systems of operation of your internet and email, here too people who make a special effort in studying specific scriptures could perhaps understand. For that, one must be competent and eligible. After explaining this, Swamiji took a paper slip and wrote a mantra, folded it, and gave it to Vimala. He gave detailed instructions such as the number of times it needs to be recited, how to transfer the benefit at specific intervals, how to perform a sacrificial fire, etc. He asked Vimala to take further instructions from the manager regarding materials to be used for sacrificial fire, etc. After meeting the manager and taking the instructions, they returned. After returning to Bangalore, Albert and Vimala took rest for an entire day. Vimala briefed Kalyan Dev with the details of the trip. He suggested to discuss all the details and come to an understanding before meeting Prem Swarup so that he could suggest any further trip required. The same evening, Albert and Vimala sat on a bench in the ashram park, sipping coffee bought in the adjacent coffee house. Have you got a clear idea about death and life after death by now after our visits? Asked Vimala. You know it, of course. I did not get any information more than what I got from the Bible. There was also no scientific explanation to convince me about reincarnation. What about your questions? Are you any better? Inquired Albert. For me too, there was no scientific explanation beyond a belief system. We have not discussed my doubts with anybody. However, I believe that if we get a proper explanation for my questions, they would also contain replies to your questions. We will ask Prem Swarup when we meet him, replied Vimala. Probably that was the intention to send us together, said Albert. I wondered whether you got it or not, but I am glad you could think of it, said Vimala with a smile. It seems you have not estimated me correctly. Let me remind you that besides a good reputation within my company about my command on cloud computing, my papers on the subject were well received by the industry, said Albert with a tone of protest and humor. Then why don't you suggest what I should specialize in? I already told you about my subjects in masters, asked Vimala. These days the orientation is on artificial intelligence. If you write GRE and get a good score, you will get into a pretty decent university, suggested Albert. Oh, in the USA, first Kalyan Dev should agree. Moreover, studies in the US are an expensive affair, said Vimala. If you get a seat, do not worry about expenses. I will take care of it, said Albert. Even for that, Kalyan Dev should agree. However, our priority is our search. Kalyan Dev suggested that we should meet Prem Swarup tomorrow, said Vimala, getting up to go to the guest house. The next day morning, they set out to meet Prem Swarup. On earlier occasions, they were directed to go to the interview room directly. Since there was no such instruction today, they waited in the auditorium along with many others. The moment they saw the Swami emerging from his chambers, there was a surge of emotion in the crowd, and they showed their respect by raising their folded hands above their shoulders. While passing, the Swami smiled at both of them and went away. Subsequently, they came to know that other interviews were restricted because of some groups came from Singapore to meet Swami. But the next day, Kalyan Dev asked them to go to the interview room directly. As usual, there were 15 people, and the Swami called these two after all the others left. What are the details of your trip? Asked Swami with a smile. Vimala briefed him with all the details and said all the information was based on a belief system that did not satisfy them, so they decided to continue the investigation. That means you have come to an important stage. You have moved from religion to spirituality, said the Swami. What is the difference, Swami? Asked Albert. You said it. You want to find the truth directly without anything based on belief. The real search begins only when you start questioning instead of accepting blindly. Is it the stage of eligibility which you mentioned earlier? asked Albert. It is almost the same, but the scriptures put it differently. Many people take refuge in religion to escape the vicious circle of pleasures and pains in life. Many people stay there without trying to break the cycle. A few people make a serious effort to come out of it in search of liberation or freedom from ignorance, which was the cause for their suffering. You mentioned finding the truth behind all the phenomenal world. What it is and how it would be like would be revealed to you in your search. But let us talk about the eligibility to realize that truth. Adi Shankaracharya brought to light the great secrets of Advaita philosophy of Upanishads with his commentaries on three important works popularly known as Prasthana Trayam. Prasthana means destination, Trayam means three. The three are 1. 10 important Upanishads, 2. Brahma Sutras, which are crisp statements on infinite consciousness, and 3. Bhagavad Gita. He also wrote books like The Crust Jewel of Knowledge, in which he stated that a seeker of liberation should have 4 essential requisites to be eligible to seek truth. They are 1. Viveka, wisdom to distinguish between what is permanent and impermanent. 2. Vairagya. There is no exact English word to describe Vairagya. In a way, it can be described as an indifference to the pleasures of this world or any other worlds like heaven, etc. 3. Control over mind, restricting running after sense-based pleasures. And lastly, a strong desire to become free or to realize the truth. Many people interpret these conditions in many ways. Few people understand them in the right perspective, but a careful study of these would indicate that they are not chronological steps to be started with step 1 and proceed to the next step, explained the Swami. What exactly is referred to as Viveka? Asked Albert. Vivekam is wisdom, that is about identifying permanent from impermanent. A careful observation of the world would reveal that nothing is permanent and a continuous change is noticed. A change implies the existence of the changeless. Very few would stop and try to find what is that is not changing. Out of many who witnessed death, you only thought of finding the truth behind it. As we discussed earlier, a person may be at a particular stage at the time of birth itself. At a very young age, he may get a strong desire to seek truth. You should note that it is difficult for ordinary people to study scriptures themselves and recognize the truth. People who just repeat what is in the scriptures are also not helpful. About eligibility, we can make a broad division into two: those who depend on the belief system and those who want direct understanding. The very fact that both of you are not at all interested in the belief system is a big step, and it indicates that you are ready and eligible to seek truth. What you require now is a guru who could help you in your search to reach the goal. It usually is not easy to find a guru who could show the path. He is not somebody whom you could choose out of the many. Destiny plays a vital role. A guru would help you first to understand the truth intellectually and later help you to recognize it directly. The Swami continued to explain. May I request you to be that guru and guide me? Asked Albert innocently. It is not possible due to the responsibility assigned to me. What is that responsibility and who assigned it, you will know yourself after your guru's teaching. What you should do in that direction, I will tell you tomorrow, said the Swami, getting up to go into inner chambers.